In today's tutorial, we're going to paint some lovely watercolor florals, and we're going to be focusing on details and design. So let's get started. Hey guys, welcome back. My name is Shayda Campbell, and on this channel I do art tutorials every Friday. So if you're into watercolor or bullet journaling, maybe go ahead and hit that subscribe button. And don't forget that you can print out the art that you see me do here after the video. It's all available on my Patreon site for just $2 a month. So unlike some watercolor artists, I often like to start with a sketch before I begin painting. So here I've got my sketchbook and pencil. I also have some tracing paper and graphite transfer paper, and those items are going to help me to transfer my design later, but we'll get into that. And then I have a pen and an eraser. So I begin by drawing a line. It could be a curved line, a straight line, it could be a whole circle. That's our initial shape of the floral motif. And then I draw some circles or shapes that will show where the flowers are going to be in this floral design. Then once I've got the flowers situated, I'll start drawing some leaves, some larger leaves, and I start filling out. And then once I have some larger leaves, I'll do some smaller leaves. And so you can see how the design kind of comes together, and you could use this for a wreath, for a floral border, for a big floral design piece, floral layout. So it starts with that shape, and then the flowers, and then the leaves, and then the really tiny leaves. And you can see how I've, created a design there. And once I'm sort of happy with that design, I'll start going over it in pen. And this allows me to start changing things that I don't like. Say I did all the leaves rounded, but now I've decided I want them to be a little more pointy, a little more almond shaped. I can easily change that when I'm working in pen. And I'm also giving a little more detail to the flowers. I can decide at this point, do I want these flowers to be roses? Are they poppies? Are they ranunculus? So adding that detail. Then the next step is to take the tracing paper and to trace the design again. So now you're doing your sketch for the third time. So at this point, you can really perfect what it is that you love about that sketch, and you can change what you don't like. And the tracing paper really helps with that because of course you're tracing. So keeping what you like and changing what you don't like. Really simple and easy to do, and the tracing paper is very effective. You also won't need to capture all the little details because we don't want to transfer every last detail to the watercolor paper, and you'll see what I mean in a second. So I'm working on Canson hot pressed watercolor paper today. I'm going to take my traced image and I'm going to use a little piece of washi tape and just tape the trace down in place. Then I'm going to place my graphite transfer paper dark side down, and I'm going to use a nice sharp pencil to go over that sketch. And I just don't want to press too hard, press lightly, but go over the entire thing. And you can see I've got a nice light transferred image. And you can see I haven't transferred every little detail, especially the small leaves, because I don't want those mucking up my watercolor painting. Okay, and then for our watercolor supplies today, I am using my koi watercolor pans from Sakura. I also always have a nice little bit of paper towel for blotting my paints. And then I'm using a number 6 round brush from Winsor & Newton. That's like my go-to all-purpose brush. And then I have some fine detail brushes, which I've been using more and more, and I'm really loving them. I also have 2 glasses of clean water, one for warm colors and one for cool colors. And the first thing I'm going to do is paint the leaves. So I'm mixing up a very gray green, a green with lots of water, with lots of purple and gray in it. And you can see here I'm just painting, coloring in basically all these leaf shapes. And I'm using very, very light grayed out greens. Some are quite purpley, some are a little bit blue, a little bit gray. And my colors, my paints, they just have a lot of water in them. And I am doing a sort of very flat colors. I'm just coloring in as if this were a coloring book, and I'll add my detail later. You can see I've done one leaf that's a little bit purple, and once those larger leaves are all painted in, I'm going to start in on these smaller leaves. And all I've transferred is a line. So I've got a line there to show me sort of where I'm placing these smaller sets of leaves. But I also will just get loose and I'll put them wherever I think they would look good. And because I haven't transferred every last leaf, it allows the painting to look really fresh, and there's not a lot of black transfer underneath that you see coming through. And you can see here I'm painting really light, so it looks nice that there aren't those transfer lines, and I'm able to add different colors and shapes of these fine leaves, and working with that detail brush is just great for that. Now I'm going to add some little buds here. I do these little heart-shaped or V-shaped floral buds. Even little ovals look great, and I'm using quite wet but very light paint, and I'm going to paint a whole bunch of them all close together, maybe 4 or 5. And you can see once those are done, I'll quickly grab some green or another color, and I'll add some stems, and the color just sort of bleeds beautifully, and it gives this really nice effect. And they're also wonderful, like the small leaves, for filling in space on this floral motif design. So now we're at the point where we can add some detail to some of these larger leaves. They've had a minute to dry, and I'm coming in with my detail brush and a darker green. I'm drawing a line down or painting a line down the center, and then adding some veining lines on just one side of that line. Of course, you could do both sides, or sometimes I like to just do a very light line on the opposite side. And yeah, this is just a nice way to add a bit of detail to a watercolor piece. I don't always get this detailed with my watercolors, but it can be a lot of fun. And I've left some of them unveined or unlined so that I've got some nice variation. For this larger purpley leaf here, I'm going to add a sort of a different detail to it. So just using that detail brush to add whatever sort of details that you like once everything has dried. And then once those lines have dried, I'm going back in and adding a darker color of green, a slightly darker but still very watery translucent green to one side of the leaf. So this is a great way to add a little bit of depth to your piece, and again, just add more detail and make it more interesting. And working in layers like this, which we would call wet on dry, so wet paint on dry paint, is a great way to add detail without it becoming complicated. So it's just one layer at a time, taking our time. And then it's time to paint these flowers. We're all done with the leaves and all the details, so I've got a nice peachy pink here for this flower in the middle. I'm just laying down a wash of color. Initially, I want to leave a little bit of negative space there, and you can see a little bit of white, and that will just make that flower pop. And then while it's still very wet, I'm coming in with a darker burgundy brown and adding that detail in the center of the flower to represent the stamen. And I'll add that purple sort of moving out into the petals so that I get a look of depth, and that flower has the nice detail that the leaves also have. And while I did a wet on dry technique for most of the leaves, for this flower, I'm doing a lot of wet into wet, where you're seeing the color seep into the still wet initial color. And so what I had here when I began that flower is I had mixed up some brown, some burgundy, some peach. So it's all right there. It's waiting for me. I can come and grab whatever color I need. So when I'm ready for that, to do that darker stamen, I just jump right in and do it. And now I'm gonna do the second flower, and it's more of a rose. And we've done many roses on the channel, but this is one that I go to. You sort of leave a little negative space. You paint this circle in using these semicircular strokes, and yeah, just leaving a little bit of negative space there. And then you always want a little bit of a darker color in the center of the rose, and you can do that either with a wet on wet or wet on dry. It doesn't matter, both look great. So you can add these extra details as slowly as you want or as quickly as you want, and just work in layers. Give the paint a chance to dry a little. If you are sort of feeling overwhelmed, come back to it, add more detail later. You can see here, there's no such thing as being too slow. I'm just adding it little by little, then I'll come back to the first flower and add a little more detail. So I'm just sort of having fun, working my way through it, seeing what sort of happy accidents I might come up with. The third flower is on a little bit more of an angle, so I'm trying to get the detail and shading right so that it looks like it's sort of blooming outward. I'm gonna add another little bit brown detail for the stamen in the center there. And yeah, I don't know if this one was as successful, but I'm happy with the piece overall. I added some little burgundy berries to sort of fill out my design, and I'm just continuing to shade the flowers and add a little detail and just get it looking all done. The leaves were maybe a bit more detailed than the flowers, so that would be something that I would think about going into my next floral piece. That was something that I thought, well, maybe the leaves were a little detailed as compared to the flowers, but that's okay. It's all just for practice and for fun anyways. And that's it. That is the finished watercolor floral motif. I hope you enjoyed watching this as much as I enjoyed painting it. I always love doing watercolor florals. Please comment below if you'd like to see more watercolor botanicals on the channel in future. Thanks again for watching, and don't forget to subscribe.